Welcome to the series Person of Interest, brought to you by the Australian Investigation Agency, fighting for truth, accountability and justice. My name is John Armfield. Episode 4, the Inquiry Officer's Inquiry Report that admitted failure. In 2012, the Air Force claimed they would investigate my brother's death. They told my family the process would be fair. They told us it would be thorough. But what they didn't tell us is that the investigation uncovered serious failures and then buried them. This is the Inquiry Officer's Inquiry Report that admitted failure and the system that shut it down. The Inquiry Officer, appointed by the Chief of the Defence Force, Air Marshal Binskin, was Squadron Leader Thatcher. Thatcher was responsible for assessing the decisions made by the Senior Medical Officer, Dr. Babu, and the Commanding Officer, Wing Commander Davies. During his investigation, Thatcher found multiple failures: policy failures, process failures, and systemic failures. And in 2023, Defence finally admitted that too.
So straight up, we'd offer you apology.
Thank you, sir.
For the way that things have been managed, the way that things have been perceived to be managed, and the lack of inaction. And that's from myself, representing Navy Health, and I suppose representing Joint Health Command. There have been some things which have just not, definitely from your point of view, have not been managed in the best light.
That admission lines up exactly with what Thatcher recorded in the Inquiry Officer's Inquiry Report. Thatcher wrote, "I have identified issues which require further consideration, and given that a Commission of Inquiry has the potential to make adverse findings," he knew the evidence justified a Commission of Inquiry, and he knew the failures. The terms of reference required him to identify whether a Commission of Inquiry was warranted, and he did. Thatcher wrote, "Processes under Defence Instruction General, Personnel 16 TAC 26 and Health Directive 294 do not appear to have been applied." He said explanations from the Senior Medical Officer and Commanding Officer revealed a, quote, "disconnect between ADF doctrine and the practical treatment of ADF personnel," end quote. Those are not minor mistakes. Those are breaches of mandatory suicide prevention procedures. And in 2023, Defence admitted those systemic failures too.
Officially, I'm sorry this has happened to you. There's been a number of errors and they keep occurring. I'm sorry that's happened.
Exactly what Thatcher identified. Thatcher also uncovered a major systemic problem. He wrote, "There appears to be a potential systemic issue in respect of the Edinburgh Health Centre. Critical staff shortages affecting compliance with Defence instructions and ADF health policy. A medical system unable to meet policy. A system that couldn't keep my brother safe." And again, in 2023, Defence admitted these failures were never addressed.
Today is to try and say, hey, look, ADF did wrong by you. ADF's still doing wrong by you. Let's stop all of this.
Well, it's only 2 years ago, though, that I think John's flipped open the Pager report and found out what Defence really thinks of him.
Yeah.
Right? And I haven't known it for 10 years, right? They've been thinking this of me for 10 years. I didn't try.
I want to see it from medical. I know I can. You did everything you could.
Thatcher saw it in 2012. Defence admitted it in 2023. But nobody acted in between, and nobody's acted since. Thatcher didn't hide these failures. He documented them. He escalated them, and he referred the matter to the Chief of the Defence Force. Para 189 states, "It is now a matter for the Chief of Defence Force to determine whether a commission of inquiry is warranted." The evidence was there. The failures were documented. A commission of inquiry should have been the next step. But then something changed. When the inquiry officer's inquiry report questioned Dr. Babu, he notified his medical insurers. His lawyers wrote to defence, claiming the inquiry had exceeded its authority. Lawyers intervened, but my family was never aware of this. And then the direction of the investigation shifted. Thatcher sought legal advice from the ADF Army lawyer. And based on that advice, the inquiry officer's inquiry states, "I do not purport to make adverse findings in respect of the senior medical officer or the commanding officer, not because the evidence cleared them, but because legal advice told him not to make adverse findings." The failures Thatcher identified were buried, and 11 years later, defence themselves admitted the harm this caused.
It's just that, from my understanding, and there's email trail after email trail about all of this, is individuals just weren't sure about where to go next. But what should have been happening is they should have been giving you clear updates on what the concerns were and what the path forward was to get us to where we are today. And that should have probably happened a lot earlier than 2 years after your initial complaints. So I do apologise about that.
Systemic failure, poor management, no accountability. Exactly what a commission of inquiry should have investigated, but never did. Now, here is the turning point. The Inspector General ADF assessment from 2022 reviewed Thatcher's inquiry officer's inquiry report. And the Inspector General ADF found that Defence's own legal review in 2012 said a commission of inquiry was mandatory if the death was service-related. Well, Thatcher found that my brother's death was service-related. Therefore, a commission of inquiry had to be appointed. CDF Binskin initially agreed, but the final brief under General Hurley reversed that decision, and the commission of inquiry was shut down. No transparency, no scrutiny, no accountability. Because the inquiry officer's inquiry was compromised, every defence investigation that came after it relied on its flawed findings. And those flawed findings followed me for the next decade. In 2023, Defence finally admitted the truth.
I'm acknowledging those errors have led to a deterioration of your health and probably led to the situation where your service in the ADF is probably not good for you at the moment. That may change in the future, it may not change in the future, I don't know, but I'm sorry it's led to that. If these 100%, if these circumstances didn't occur, we'd be in a different situation.
The failures identified in the inquiry officer's inquiry didn't stop in 2012. They've kept happening, and they cost me my 20-year career. The inquiry officer inquiry's report admitted the failures. The legal review said a commission of inquiry was required, but defence leadership buried the truth. Australia, this wasn't just a medical failure. This was leadership shutting down the truth. A mandatory commission of inquiry should have been held. Instead, defence buried the evidence. So I'm asking you, should this have been allowed to happen? Should leadership get to decide what truth the public is allowed to see? You decide. In the next episode, I expose how a commission of inquiry in Andrew's death was approved and then made to disappear. Thank you.